Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Ctrl+Alt+Delete. No, what am I talking about? Ctrl+Alt+Debate. I don't even know the name of my own podcast, and it's the third episode. I'm your host. Oh, God, it's like, I'm your host, Gar, and I'm here with my good buddy Kraken, as you can hear. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Hey.
You ready for another? Oh, I mean, I can't even get the name of my own,
Anything.
Yeah, I can't apparently just speak at all today, so that's a good start.
It's a good job you've got the main bit.
Yeah, well, not really by the sounds of it, but hopefully we can get through it without making terrible mistakes like that. But yeah, we're looking forward today. We've got another action-packed episode ahead of us lined up. Whether you're sitting there grinding for your day or just hitting pause for a bit to listen to our lovely podcast, we welcome you, and we hopefully got something for every gamer out there. So in today's episode, we dive in deep into gaming as usual, sprinkling with some fun obscure trivia. But let's just do a quick rundown of like what we've got ahead of us. But before we do that, just hopefully if you like what you hear, remember to follow us or click the like button and subscribe. We appreciate anyone that would enjoys our content. Let's move on then to the overview for today. So we got a quick rundown on what's coming up. We got the game bites as usual, the fun facts, feed your controller, exploring some mind-blowing gaming facts and the impact they have on the industry, and we'll be doing that again because it was pretty awesome. We'll be looking at gaming failures, look into some of the biggest flops of games throughout the last couple of decades, and discussing the more infamous. Yeah, trust me, when we get there, there's going to be some humdingers. It's definitely, yeah, exactly. There's some good ones, so stay tuned for that. We got Backseat Gamers, again, the agree to disagree, debating some of gaming's most controversial takes. These don't, I don't think it's too controversial this week, but there's still some good points, and we'll be discussing the differences in those. So yeah, look forward to that. We've then got gaming memories that shaped us. We brought that back again. This time we'll be looking at more general points rather than specific memories that we had. We'll be looking back at some key points in our existence here on Earth, and the gaming periods that had that kind of impact on us during those periods. So again, that's something to look forward to. And finally, the last one, which I think is one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most, is the legacy of console wars, where we'll be looking at the reasons why people go on the internet and scream at each other like absolute morons. So yeah, we'll be touching on that and looking at why people do this, why it exists in the zeitgeist within the gaming industry, and why people can't just get the fuck on and enjoy the games instead of moaning about who's got a better graphics card than the other person or whatever. I know your PC master race, Kraken, so I'm sure you. It's
not like I'm a soldier of it,
No.
Just my choice of medium, I guess.
True. You're not like one of those psychotic people that are willing to chop people's heads off for having like a crap system.
No. I don't believe I've given anyone death threats over it, so yeah, we're all good.
Yeah, so we'll look forward to that. So let's dive in then straight to segment one, which is game bites and the fun facts that we're gonna put in. We're gonna start with some bizarre. We always start with a couple of bizarre stuff in here. It's not too bizarre, but we got some interesting ones. So the first one is, it's not really a fact. It's more about looking at Easter eggs in gaming and their impact. Are they good? Are they bad? What do they bring to the experience? Easter eggs, I feel. I mean, let's Kraken. Let's. What's your opinion on Easter eggs? Have you got any, anecdotes or opinions on?
Well, I just think they're nice little fun additions, aren't they? If you're buggering around in a game and then suddenly you find something that's completely out of place, it adds a little bit of, I don't know, excitement, a bit of extra fun, doesn't it? That you weren't expecting. So, I mean, the cow level in Diablo is quite a commonly known one. But there's all sorts out there. So, yeah, I think they're a good addition. It's a way of showing the developers' fun side beyond just the, being stuck on the railroad of just developing that game on its own. They like to add little, fun jokes in, which I think is quite a good little extra, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love Easter eggs in video games, mainly because especially if it's like something else that you really enjoy. you know, like another game that you were a big fan of, and you see it in like another game. It's like kind of that momentarily excitement of going, oh, I know that, it's from, you know, this game or whatever, and you know, it's a nice little thing, or a quote, or a piece of music, or something that's like relating to, or it's like a thumbs up to another game. I remember people have done that in other games, like Dark Souls is obviously another one where they have the bonfires, and then there's like loads of other people that have put bonfires in their games, like, you know, in the same style of Dark Souls. I remember there was a game that did
like
that.
hidden off somewhere.
Huh?
Like hidden off somewhere.
Yeah, as like a little sort of side mission or side quest or something. But I think, you know, they're an important aspect of gaming culture, and there's always nice to people find them. There's some that the best parts are like ones where you have to wait like 10-15 years to find out, and then you get like some piece of news article where someone's found an Easter egg for like 15 years after the game release. And I always wonder something that always makes me think, why don't the developers say something? You know, if it's like 10 years, that they go, hey guys, there's actually a Easter egg here. No one's found it. You know,
because it's more fun for someone to find it. Think of it like a time capsule. If it's something that's so well hidden that it takes that long for people to find it, it makes it more exciting when it finally does come out, doesn't it? Because then it's been for years and years. People have just left it gone on completely unnoticed. I think that adds a little extra.
That's true, but I do makes me wonder if there's any Easter eggs that have been out there for 20-30 years that haven't been found, and they're just like, this is, you know, it might never be found.
You imagine also there's probably some that have been found, but the person that found it never said anything, and it just still remained a secret.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as a little fun fact here, the very first Easter egg in video games was hidden in a 1980s game, Adventure for the Atari 2600. A secret room in the game displayed the name of the game's developer, Warren Robinett. This sparked a now iconic tradition of hidden secret content in games. So that's cool. It was just some guy's name in a hidden room. That's that, you know, as an early thing, and that
exciting for a first one.
Yeah, it's not like whoa. That's like, but you know, someone probably found that. You know, if it was hidden room, and that's probably how it all started. And it's cool that something came from that. And obviously modern games continue to add to these kind of little Easter eggs for experiences for gamers to enjoy, and long may it continue, you know, in my opinion. Great part.
There's actually, just to throw one other one in there, there's on the Ragnarok map for Ark. I know I keep going to Ark, I have way too many hours in it, but there is a small kind of it looks like a ruins that's half underground. And because it was a community map, everyone that donated or helped out with the processing and developing of the map, their names are carved in the wall around this little secret underground area, which I think is a really cool little sort of dedication to everyone that helped. And there's things like that in all sorts. It's a great little thing to do, I think.
Yeah, I think that's more like a what do you call it? When someone, you know, like a homage to people, or to people, you know, in their own sort of way.
It's not evident as you go past. You wouldn't even know that it was in there unless you have to, you know, drop through a broken window. So yeah.
All right, well, that's our takes on Easter eggs in gaming. If you guys have any personal opinions, please put it down in the comments, and we'll happily shout it out or give our opinion on it. But we can move on to the second fact. Or the influence of gaming soundtracks. It's not really a fact. Again, these are more just looking at whether these are impactful or not, as sort of like a fact. So iconic soundtracks in gaming. I've got quite a lot to say, so I'll probably start off with this because I do have a lot of a big take in it. Obviously, Final Fantasy, particularly Nobuo Uematsu, is like probably my all-time favorite video game composer. In fact, I'm going to Barcelona next month to watch another Distant Worlds for the Final Fantasy Rebirth music sort of live orchestra. So I think it's like the fourth or fifth one that I've gone to. Yeah, it's great. I recommend it to anyone who's been thinking about going to watch live orchestra for video game music. It is a really great experience. But music for me is a huge part of gaming. I think, you know, it really builds like dramatic moments in the games. If you're like,
you were a music man long before we really started gaming anyway, weren't you? So
yeah, I mean,
sort of an extension of your passion for music in the first place.
Absolutely, no question about it. I mean, some people are very indifferent about it. I mean, but for me, I think some games have such iconic soundtracks; they're instantly noticeable. Like the likes of the Zelda theme, or like the Final Fantasy Victory music, or anything that's the actual sort of the main prelude for Final Fantasy. I mean, you could go on the Metal Gear Solid music. You could go on all day about it, really. There's so
Bloody
many.
Raw.
Bloody
I've
Raw.
got to throw Bloody Raw in it. The battle music in that game was just absolutely phenomenal.
Showing your age there, buddy, or showing our age rather.
I don't care. It's a
People,
good game.
all the Gen Zers, if there was Gen Zers in chat or watching, they're probably thinking, "What the hell is Bloody Raw?" Maybe just explain it to people, because there are people that are a lot younger that probably they've never heard of Bloody Raw, know what the hell it is.
Yeah, we think of like a Tekken game, but every character can turn into some kind of animal, a sort of animalized version of a human being, anthropomorphized.
I bet you regret having to say that now. He's just like, I could have just said something else close to that rather than trying.
I really could have. Yeah, I could have chosen any other word possible. But yeah, and you had to build up a meter, didn't you? And then you could morph. I think it was just a very cool fighting game.
No, it was. We used to play it when during school holidays. I remember it very well. I mean, so it was. That did have a cool song. I remember the song you're talking about specific. Well, it had some good soundtrack, but the music video, if you want to call it that, for the intro of back in the PlayStation days, they loved doing that. Having put like half the budget of the game into the intro of the game, like literally before the menu.
I think it was because it was very anime, wasn't it? So if you look at like rival schools as well, that was another one. They all had really cool kind of almost rock kind of background music.
Which one? Sorry.
Rival schools. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, Rival Schools was
the baseball bat and everything.
Yeah, Rival Schools was really cool as well. I was a massive fan of that. Rival Schools. That was the one that had like the individual schools and stuff like that.
Yeah. They all had like a sport that they used. So you'd have like a volleyballer would use a ball as a weapon, and the baseball guy would obviously use a baseball bat. It was a bit cheaty, really.
I'm sure his name, like this, I'm not joking. This might be wrong, and I'm not gonna say this is right. But there was a guy that had the baseball bat. I swear his name was Bato. Which I thought was funny.
You might be right, actually.
He's literally dude with a bat, and he's called Bato, which I thought was hilarious. So. That had a good soundtrack as well, to be fair. But yeah, definitely a really important part of gaming. What anyone watching out there, please feel free to give your favorite game soundtrack. What really influenced you or gave you, inspired you when you played video games? Something specifically iconic that you want to mention? Feel free to put it in the comments below. So let's look on to the third sort of fact of gaming, or the third sort of interesting point, was the impact of streaming on gaming culture. So obviously we're right here literally streaming to Twitch and YouTube, and obviously we're a very small channel, also a non-existent one, but there's a lot of people out there influencing and inspiring lots of people around the world on the likes of on these two platforms. How has streaming affected the way that people play or watch video games, versus, back in the day before that existed? It was either play a game or watch a friend play a game or something. What's your take on this, Kraken? What do you think about streaming today? Do you think it's,
But I think it's a great thing. There's plenty of people that watch other people play the games. I mean, if I'm watching a stream, it's usually not live, if I'm brutally honest, because I'm going to it to look for like tips or gameplay guides or something. But yeah, I can understand the drive or the sort of draw to it. It can be quite fun, especially if it's let's say for PC gamers, like if you've got a sort of non-amazing computer and you want to see someone play a very graphically heavy game at 4K resolution, then you can do that. But you're not going to be able to play it that way yourself. So I suppose that's one side of it. And other people got the patience to sit there and watch someone play through an entire game to give them ideas of what they've potentially missed. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects of it that are quite cool. Gets the games out there as well. Some various unknown indie games might get a bit of airtime and gain popularity that way. So I think it's got quite a significant effect on the gaming market as a whole. You've got some people that, make their games in their basement and have never had it seen, but with streaming, that makes it possible. It's
sort of like a marketing aspect. It's like much better these days. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's more about knowing how to promote your channels these days that I find the hard part. I mean, I don't really understand the way to, because obviously we're startups. We've never really done this. I just, as you and I discussed, it's just fun as a hobby just to talk about gaming and things that we enjoy. But people that want to make a living out of it, you still have to be able to sell your channel and make it interesting. And and that involves people watching people play video games. Let's play. Now it's kind of saturated with so many people. And you've got to have, I guess, something special to bring to the table. I mean, we were joking about this the other day. It was just like, if you did a let's play, because we don't have any context.
Basically,
sit silent.
We're trying to do the opposite of special, which is me failing harder.
No, but that's fine. But as you mentioned, we've got that coming up. To me and Kraken, while watching Kraken play Sekiro, which is going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. But at least, but the thing is, that's constant content. Doing it. I'm talking about let's play by yourself, and if you're the introverted type that doesn't have anything to say, you're just going to sit there in silence playing the game because it feels a bit awkward to talk to a non-existent channel.
Yeah, if I was to stream, that unfortunately would probably fall on what I would do, because I do concentrate a little too hard on when I'm doing stuff in a game, and I'll go silent until something rage-inducing happens, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Then suddenly you just get the fuck, out of nowhere, silence for 20 minutes until you die, and then sudden expletives coming through. That would still be kind of entertaining, but you'd have to wait the 20 minutes. That would be the bad part before you get the moment of bit of humility after you just got wasted by a boss. But okay. Well, I mean, I still think it's a good part of culture, as long as people have that. People end up watching people game rather than game themselves. I mean, as long as they're happy, I think it's a fine part of the industry and part of today's modern culture. Okay. Well, give us our thoughts down in chat as usual. If you have anything you want to say on that topic, we will now move on though to segment 2, which is gaming failures. Now, we're going to look at 3 specific games and their progression from when they released up until now. We're going to give our commentary on our thoughts on it and the reasons why we think it didn't do well on release, and what the developers did to either resolve it or to leave it in the dust. So let's jump straight into this then. So the first game that we're going to be looking at is No Man's Sky, which released in 2016. God, that's gone quick. It's nearly 10 years ago. But yeah, it was a big game, major hype when it came out. It promised players a vast, infinite universe. But on the release, it was just plagued with a lot of bugs and had limited content, and there was just a huge backlash from the gaming community on its release, because it was kind of empty and just devoid of anything of interest.
Promotional material beforehand was so overblown versus what was delivered, and it failed so badly. Jesus, the number of refunds I imagine they did must have been painful.
Yeah, and that was before. I think that was pre the Steam 1 hour whatever it was refund thing that they had back then. I'm not sure they had that back in 2016. But yeah, there was so much disappointment with that game, because I think people had this massive, super hype expectations of it. Ironically, No Man's Sky today, in contrast, is there's a massive community in it, and it's fairly well respected.
They've done an absolute ton of updates since to sort of make up for that initial blunder. And fair play to them, because some studios would have probably just not bothered and just said, look, you've got exactly what we told you were going to get, even if the promotion material was a little bit overblown, and they would have walked away. Not mentioning certain studios, but
Yeah, I
So,
know.
you don't. I think the rule is just don't overpromise.
Well,
And you won't have to backtrack.
I think it was more a case of there was too much ambition from the developers, and they couldn't deliver on it. I mean, this has happened
Yeah.
on a lot of game releases where they've gone. I mean,
They sat around the ideas table, threw out a bunch of stuff, and didn't realize that some of it was not, feasible in the time frame they had.
yeah, and I think probably bad communication and just inability to be able to quell the hype that had built around it. Oh, we got a message from Greg. So nice little story on No Man's Sky. Fans got together after a few years and rented a billboard outside No Man's Sky to say thank you for their effort. Oh, really? Is that?
You know what? That is damn cool. I like that. I like that a lot.
That is cool.
Yeah. That is really cool.
But I think that's the point, right? Is that they had the heart on the game. The heart was in the right place, and it just.
And the gamers appreciated it. That's the key. Like I think a lot of studios forget that. They forget that the gamers do appreciate the effort when it's made. So they realised they messed up, they sorted it out, and the gamers showed their appreciation. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that it got to where. I mean, you and me have played it as well for a fair bit, and we had a lot of fun with it. I think for me personally, it's not my type of game, but I can see how people can play it for hours and hours. It got a bit repetitive for me, and a lot of samey stuff. And once you've done like some of the big fights in it and killed off, like I remember. To be fair, I cheesed the hell out of it. There was like this one where they had those big, massive, like mecha, like the robot monsters. I can't remember what they were called, but I was like hiding in this little base, like coming out and like shooting him with a P gun and then running back in again. I just did that, and it took like 20 minutes to kill him. But I was like, oh, I've done it now. I've killed like the hardest thing in the game. Because I was like, is anything harder than this? No. All right, I've killed everything. And in my true From Software sort of mentality, I've gone, well, I've done the game now. I've got weapons to kill the hardest guy in the game. Like, I don't need to really do anything more. So, it's pretty funny. But it's a good game. It's a good game. And, even though it did fail, I mean, looking at failures, I think it was still a win in the end for that one. But
yeah, definitely.
I still think,
for the studio really, because it showed people that as a studio they are prepared to fix things when they go wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a big bonus at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, well let's move on to the next game then, which is Cyberpunk 2077. Released in 2020. So obviously anyone knows about Cyberpunk 2077. It was the CD Projekt Red's like follow-up game to the hugely successful Witcher 3. Obviously a different style of game, but people were so hyped for it. I mean, I remember the watching the trailers for it and being like, Keanu Reeves is in it. Oh man, this is so good. Like, it was gonna be, the hype level was like intensely high. Like,
yeah, the trailer looked insane.
It did. I was like, this is gonna be the best game. And it just released to absolute. It was just a shocker.
It wasn't just buggy. Like, it was a bug. Like, seriously,
yeah, I mean,
it was so bad.
I mean, it was terrible. It didn't play well. There was bugs. There was like crashes that like actually destroyed. There was one. There's people like talking about like save games that got corrupted and stuff, like where you couldn't like you couldn't finish the game. It was just terrible. I actually think like
graphical glitches as well. Like there were some people with well above the minimum required specs that it was just purely unplayable. And it's if you, I mean, Christ. Most game studios, they understand that you're putting something out, then it needs to be tested on a lot of hardware, and you put out your required specs, and you've got to be able to have tested it on those things, and or if you have and someone's changed something, you test it again. But something happened between that and the release time, and it just, I mean, the textures weren't loading, the lighting wasn't working, like there were so many issues across the board. It wasn't just console. PC players had a lot of issues as well.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, I think, if we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, is like the company not being transparent with people. I think they were so scared about the hype level being so high. They thought that if they just say nothing and hope to God that the game sells like hotcakes, which I think it did sell quite well. but it was like, you know, probably like a lot of people returning the game after realizing it was just a shoddy mess. And they have like fixed it now. Like it plays again. This is one that like plays pretty well now. I mean, I've heard good things about it since the DLC. I haven't personally played it, but I've heard that it's a very functional game now, and it plays pretty well with, you know, how it should have done.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that it had one of the largest development teams for any game that has been made, and it could have been, you know, maybe it was just one of those whole too many chefs situations. Something went wrong along those lines. I don't know, but it was something in the region of about 300 developers, I think.
I mean, that's probably
it's slightly ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big team. CD Projekt Red had the money from it, though. I mean, they made an absolute fortune on Witcher 3. That game was an insane amount of sales on that game. They would have made a lot of money off that. But, you know, obviously, they had, again, this is another case of just huge ambitions and not being able to deliver on what they promised, and the pressure got to them. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to communicate it to the fan base. I would have just extended it and just said when it's not ready to go out, and, you know, people be upset, but it's better than what happened in the actual reality of the scenario. Again, a game that's recovered. So 2 out of 2 so far. It's pretty good. There were disasters, but, you know, again, these games have recovered. And CD Projekt Red, even though it really damaged their reputation, I think they've somewhat repaired it.
So I know a lot of people have something against early access. I mean, it can be done right and it can be done wrong, but there are certain games that I think that if you have such a monumental budget, if people are pre-ordering, you may as well allow them to try it out, and it will give you a lot of these bugs before release, and they could have found out beforehand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And it's a good I think it's a good argument for that to be a sort of more commonplace thing, as long as studios don't take too much advantage of it, because it is effectively free testers, isn't it?
The thing is, though, the thing is, I would say that early access tends to not be for like single player experiences, because it doesn't really work. It's more for like multiplayer games, like have like a long future ahead of them,
or at least a demo then.
Yeah, I mean,
because there'll be a way of benchmarking against everyone's systems either way.
Again, you could be disingenuous with a demo and release something that's not like buggy, and then the game is garbage. So, I mean,
yeah, true. But if it's got the same engine and the same textures and the same mechanics and everything, then surely bugs will be identified before release.
You would think so. Yeah. But you know, I guess they didn't in this case. All right. Well, let's move on to the last game that we're going to be reviewing, and this one is just a straight up disaster. It's Mass Effect Andromeda, released in 2017. It was a massively, again, anticipated sequel to the Mass Effect series, but it just didn't reach the requirements. You know, the expectation was due to the awkward. I remember the animations were just terribly awkward. It had a terrible, weak storyline, which, let's be honest, Mass Effect people are, or Mass Effect as a game franchise was known for its amazing storytelling, choices, you know, the ability to really define your own sort of, you know, way in the game. You know, you want to just choose your decisions, and that would have an impact on the outcome of the story. I mean, people loved that about it, and this didn't have any of that. It was just the mechanics were there apparently. So I didn't actually play Andromeda. I just remember it being absolutely panned, and just thinking, you know what, I'm going to give this one a wide berth, which I don't normally do, but it got so hammered in by everyone. I was just like, I looked at some animations for it. I was like, this looks terribly janky. And it just didn't capture any of the magic of the actual original Mass Effect. Now, the question I have, and I don't remember, I'm literally spitballing, was this at the EA takeover of BioWare, or was it before? I can't remember. It's got to be after, right?
I don't know, but if it happened the way that they say, then probably.
I'm pretty sure it was after, because like the earlier...
I'm not a fan of EA at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another. I think that's for another episode. Yeah. EA and or just other companies that have like done dirty on gaming. Like, I think that's one we'll cover maybe in next week's episode. I'll make a quick mental note of that one. Yeah, because that's a good one to discuss. But I mean, there's not much to say about Mass Effect Andromeda. It's a piece of shit. I'm sorry, but like anyone, I mean, I've seen enough of that to like. If anyone's a Mass Effect Andromeda fan out there watching, I'm terribly sorry if I've offended you, but it was a stain on the Mass Effect series from what I've seen. It's nowhere near up to the caliber of storytelling that the previous games were able to deliver on, and it's just a stain on that franchise, and it's sad. They didn't even make an effort to actually fix it or make it like something better, which I suppose you can't do at that point.
That's terrible. Yeah, you've got to try and fix the mistakes, otherwise everyone's just going to lose all trust in your ability to deliver what they're looking for.
Exactly.
I mean, I see on your notes here, we got, can developers ever truly replicate the success of a beloved franchise? I think, yes, they can, when they actually love the franchise themselves. I mean, that's
the difference between like an indie developer versus like a AAA studio where it's just all corporate.
Yeah, because
yeah,
exactly. It suddenly turns corporate, and they're like, "How can we squeeze more money out of this? Can we change this to make it better?" And it's like, well, hold on.
Blame that on the shareholders. I mean, that's their deadlines. Cutting costs. Like they care about the money. I mean, I understand businesses need to make money, but gaming's more about passion and creativity than it should be about making the bucks. Like making the bucks will come.
There are games.
Look at Baldur's Gate. Yeah, Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, exactly. There are games out there that have literally played to the fans on purpose because they know what the fans want. Now, if you're taking a franchise and you're flipping it on its bloody head, then you're not putting out something else in that franchise. You should call it something else. Change the name, change the characters, because, Jesus, what's the point? You're trying to force fans of a franchise to like something else, the same as they liked what they had before, but you've changed it. So that seems so ridiculous. It's completely backwards in terms of development, in my mind. Yeah. Command & Conquer is a good example. Command & Conquer 4, I mean, what the hell was that? Except straight up murder of the franchise. And then maybe they thought afterwards, oh, people don't really like Command & Conquer anymore. Wrong. People loved Command & Conquer. They just hated what you did to it. That's the difference.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I think that's something, another one for like to go into the episode, into the next episode, which we'll be looking at EA's takeover of Westwood, but also EA's takeover of like a whole bunch of other stuff. I really want to go into depth on that one, so we'll be looking at that maybe on the next episode. All right, well let's move on then to segment 3. Which will be Backseat Gamers Agree to Disagree. So we're going to be looking at some opinions, in gaming and discussing, what we think about it. These are normally like takes from people that will put stuff out on Reddit or other popular gaming social platforms to discuss, are these important or not? Let's have a look. The first opinion is games that rely on endless grinding for progression are boring. Now, I'm going to be someone with a very big opinion on this because this is literally my entire gaming experience online for multiplayers. So I do not think it's boring, and massively not the case because, well, there's a lot of things here that I would put in. It's a lot to do with the social aspect of it. I mean, right now I'm playing Monster Hunter with a lot of some new friends that I've made, and the gaming experience from that has been much better. It's grinding, yes, it's grinding, but the social aspect of it makes it so much fun. It takes away some of the mediocrity of grinding. And now you could say, well, you're having to do something else to circumvent another problem. It's just like not really circumvention. It's a fun.
To be fair, sorry, as someone that doesn't really like Monster Hunter, oh my god, shock horror. It's a different kind of grind in there, and I can see the appeal. But with games that, in terms of like unnecessary grinding, it's just killing like 50 of this really boring, easy to kill mob. I mean, that's just, why? Honestly, it's just a time sink. That's literally all it is. At least if you're having to fight large bosses like you do in Monster Hunter, you're honing skills at the same time. It's just, that's so different as a grind to me than those other games out there, like sort of putting an MMO style grind of go off, kill 50 of these, go off, harvest 10 of these from the corpses of whatever monster that drops, and it's a rare drop. It's like 1 in every 20 kills you get 1 item. Like, that is horrendous for me gameplay wise. That's what bores me. That's why I don't really play MMOs anymore. It's because so many of them just rely on that as a means to
Stretch
level
the
people up, and
yeah.
and Jesus,
They're stretching their
it's all
content.
destroying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I agree with that as well. Like, I think the different difference is, well, the most frustrating part of grinding content is when you got the RNG factor of like a rare item drop that's like, I don't know, like less than 1% drop rate, and you're there for like 24 hours. And what's worse is when when one of your mates gets it on the first try, and then you get it like 25 attempts later, because you're just an unlucky motherfucker. So
and he's got to sit around for the next 20 minutes, half an hour, whilst you try and get one.
Exactly. And then you get the guilt factor as well. It's just like, you go in there and your friend gets it, and then by the 10th attempt they're like, did you get it? No. Oh. And you can hear like the disappointment, and then that's the only bit I really dislike. And then you're like, you just feel like massive guilt, and you're like, I'm sorry, I'm just really unlucky. But
yeah, and I'm like the most unlucky person in history as well. So.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you're definitely up there. You don't get lucky when it comes to random stuff on the in games and stuff. Over the years, I've definitely noticed that. But I still think it has its place in the industry and in games. I enjoy it. If it was to disappear, I would be genuinely sad to have some grindy content, because developers cannot create like endless content. It's just not possible, because it takes so long.
Not.
So these kind of things,
you need to work for things, but there are some points where it just becomes a tactless, kind of just aimless rubbish. Like you're just being sent off to an area to hit stuff for a long time, which is rubbish. That's not gameplay. That's boring as crap. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. As long as they make it so that, like, that was another thing. In Monster Hunter, you can go to the guiding lands to grind monsters for like transmogrification, whatever you call layered armor, they call it in the game. So it's just another time sink, but I don't mind that, like, because someone would be like, oh, I want to have that armor to like layer it, like to put it on top of another set of armor, because I don't like the armor set that I'm wearing. I still get to keep all the skills. It's just another thing to go and do. Now, I don't mind that. I think that's fine. It just gives more content to do. Is it sort of a bit sort of repeatable and just like they've done this and added that? Yeah, it is, but it's content to do, something to do. And if you enjoy the game,
it's also optional.
Of course it's optional, yeah. It's just like, it just adds extra content for people to do if they want to collect all the armor, to have it layered so they can put it on top of their other armor. I just think stuff like that's really cool, and long may it live in those games. Otherwise I'd be quite a sad gamer, because it's part of something that I really like. Okay, so let's move on then to the second opinion, which is I think we're going to have something to say on this as well, is early reviews of games are a trap. What do you think of that statement, Kraken?
Yeah, I mean that is a tough one. If we're talking about like critic reviews, I honestly I take very little from critic reviews. I do find a lot of critics, they review games that aren't for them in the first place, or they have such a specific type of like. I think when people review a game, they should be sort of thinking about the mass appeal of a game, not purely what they like. And I think unfortunately some critics get a little bit up themselves and believe that everything they like is what everybody likes. I think the most reliable form is looking through the first rounds of customer reviews, let's say, because they're the ones that bought it hoping for something in a sort of general whatever they like. So you can go through a big old list of them and look at the star ratings and see what the negative ones said was negative about it. That's usually the way I work on it when I'm looking for a fun game to play. I look at the negative ones first to see just what these people think is the worst state of the game before I look at the positive ones. Yeah. I don't know if that's just years of trying to learn, how to pick a game or something, but to me that tends to work better than just looking at positive reviews, because they could be just people that are easily entertained. You want to look at the people that are difficult to entertain, and if they've still got some positives listed when they've put the thing as 1 star, then it makes it a bit more of an interesting review.
Actually, I'm a bit of a sucker for reviews. Maybe not critic reviews. Like, I kind of look at them both equally. More so, I'm leaning towards user reviews, but I am quite bad. I'm trying to get out of the habit of, because a lot of my other friends have said, like, you should just play a game if it looks like something you're interested in. Don't let like the six out of. And also, I must get out of this because we live in a world now where like anything that's under 8 is just trash. And I've got into that mindset as well. Like, it's got to be something. It's got to be 8 or above for me to like even give it like my time of day. There is instances where I don't care about reviews. If there's like a game I'm like for instance, Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out. If the review came out and it was like a 7 out of 10, I'd still play it. Like, nothing's gonna stop me playing it. But these are like rare examples. Most games I will like look at the reviews and then I will decide off the reviews if I'm gonna purchase the game or not. If I see there's a lot of like clap back on the game from users, I'll go into the actual user reviews and be like, why are they giving them 1 out of 10? Is it just because they're just mad for some arbitrary reason? Is it PC gamers? Like, that's the other thing. I get like review bombed because PC gamers are saying my graphics card is not loading it and I'm getting crashing. I instantly ignore those people because I'm playing on console. But obviously PC gamers tend to, that can sometimes happen when the reviews get bombed because, you know, graphics cards are having problems or something. Which isn't actually a representation of the game per se, but it's more like a technicality of the, which is why I think there should actually be different review areas, like technicality, like bugs and stuff like that.
The thing is, to be honest though, if a game is being review bombed because graphics cards of a certain level and power, let's say, aren't being able to play the game when they are within the recommended specs, then that's a perfectly legitimate review bomb. Although, as you say, your console, so it doesn't really bear any sort of power on you. But for PC gamers, that is a big important thing, because if the game is saying that it can run on X, Y, Z and it doesn't, then they need to know beforehand.
I agree. No, I agree. I agree with that. It's just, does that mean the game is crap because there's a technical fault?
No.
That's why
the developers.
So
that's what it means.
Yeah. So if it gets a 4 out of 10 because there's a problem with a graphics card setting or something that's causing a crash, which they will patch within, I don't know, 7 days, and then the game's fine. It would be really unfair for that to just be sitting at 4 out of 10 because there was like one technicality that they overlooked. And this is the other thing about reviews, which is annoying, is like if you look at a game in retrospect from like two years ago and you're deciding if you're going to buy it on the sale and the reviews are terrible and it's because of something that was on release and they've now long since reviewed, you still have like a crap review score.
Let's be honest, I bet there's a billion but he's still 1-star reviews on No Man's Sky, because at the time it was obviously so bad people just decided never to go back to it, and even some that started playing it again, they had a sour taste in their mouth and didn't bother changing the review back. But it is a case of you've got to sort your mistakes, own it.
That's the thing. You got to get it right first time, basically, in today's day and age. Like,
well, no, you don't have to get it right first time.
You have to get close to right.
You've got to admit you've got it wrong. That's the important bit. If you don't admit you've got it wrong, then people won't trust you.
I'm not sure though. Like the gamers of today's age, like are that forgiving. Like, I'd like to think some of them are, but I think a lot of them are far too unforgiving and just would be like raging and then would just want a refund. So
the vast majority of No Man's Sky people, as we've seen, have actually have very positive reviews of No Man's Sky now, where they started off as negative.
That's true, but I think the community was strong. I think the community for that game was like it was sort of like rubbish on release, and then it was like a slow increase from like a pretty low
potential as well.
Yeah, it was like a massive spike at the start, and then everyone left, and then it just sort of slowly built back up to like a good, it was like a slow burner, and it got back to where it wanted to be eventually. So the community was kind of like built from the ground up. It's almost like the castle was there, and then someone just stamped on the entire castle, destroyed it, and then they rebuilt the whole castle again. That's how I feel like No Man's Sky was like in its process. But like I think myself, I'll be trying harder not to try not to use reviews too much as a benchmark on whether I'm going to buy something or not, and just try, I try to do demos more often to play them to make my own decision on whether I'm going to get it or not, because I have been influenced by some games to not buy them and then later found out they're actually really good because I didn't give it time of day. So that's that one. So it's let's move on to the final opinion on this segment, which is cutscenes are ruining gameplay. Now this one is another good one. And again, I probably have like another strong take on this, and it really depends on a variety of factors. Some games it uses cutscenes very well. I mean, Last of Us might be a good example. I know you haven't really played it, but there's a ton of cutscenes in Last of Us and Last of Us 2. But it's the sort of thing where you don't mind, because it's just the storytelling is so good. It's like watching a TV series. You don't mind watching the cutscene. And then you have the likes of Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO, which is like hundreds of hours of cutscenes, which is absurd just to think of the fact that you've got to go through all those cutscenes to get, and I think they're unskippable as well. So you literally have to go through them to get to the end of the game, which is an MMO, so it's more acceptable. What's your take on it though, on cutscenes in video games?
Well, I think hundreds of hours of cutscenes in an MMO is a bit much, to be honest. But I think studios in the past, they did some really, really bloody good ones. And they're obviously not in great waters at the moment, but Blizzard, Warcraft 3 in the early stages, even now, to be fair, World of Warcraft, their cutscenes are absolutely insane. I love them. I absolutely love them. Their artists, kudos, because they are insane. But for, like, you know, console sort of, I don't know. As you say, like, what's the latest Final Fantasy one?
16?
Is it 16? 16, yeah. That's
don't get me started on that game.
It's so cinematic.
I mean, that's an absolute overkill.
What's the gameplay? I mean,
it's a movie. It's like, I'm sorry, but like,
it's an interactive film, and that to me is ridiculous. Like, you got a game that, yeah, sure, they've been.
Right, don't get me wrong. The cinematics in the game
are
probably the best in the industry. 16, it's probably got the best cinematics. I will give them that with no. I mean that with all genuinity. Like, the cutscenes in Final Fantasy 16 are probably some of the best cutscenes ever brought to the video game cutting floor. They are unbelievable.
Yeah, I've
unbelievable.
seen a few, and it does look fantastic. But a game is meant to have gameplay, and lots of it. And if you've got more cutscenes than you have gameplay, no, come on, that is silly.
That is terrible.
Because you want people to be engaged with what's going on, and the whole reason, like, Final Fantasy was so good on the lead up to this, was the correct mix of cutscenes to gameplay. There was hundreds of hours of gameplay versus a couple of hours of cutscenes, and they were made pristinely. They were made amazingly to fit where they were meant to go. And it worked, because people played for a while and they got rewarded with a massive scene of, let's say, was it Midgar firing off the Mako cannon? I mean, come on, that's awesome. But, like, Jesus, you can't make your entire bloody game a cinematic, because that's basically just giving the animation department all the work, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, it's one of those things. Like, Final Fantasy 16 is an infuriating game for me, because I wanted to love it so much, but I finished it. I did finish it because the story was good, but I want to play a video game, not watch one. Like, if I want to watch one, I'll go on Twitch and watch it, you know, Asmongold playing something, like, or whatever. Like, if I buy a video game, I want to play it. I don't want to watch it. Like, you know, Yoshi P, you know.
Especially with current prices of video games, let's be fair.
Well, exactly. You pay 60 quid to watch a movie. Like, I mean, people were going to argue about that and be like, wow, there's no gameplay. It's like, yeah, but the immersion breaking is terrible. If I have to sit there and play for 10 minutes and then watch, like, a whole ton of cutscenes, and then play for 10 minutes and watch another ton of cutscenes, that is not fun. I'm sorry, it's just not. If maybe you think that's fun, or someone watching this thinks that's fun, okay, fine. But a lot of people do not find that fun, and that game is very divisive. And there are people that will disagree with this take and say, no, it's really good, it's a great game. Fine. If you enjoy it, all power to you. But just understand that not everyone wants to sit and watch, like, hours, you know, cutscenes. There's cinematic storytelling, and then there's just immersion breaking cutscenes that just are too long and drawn out. And I don't like it. I would rather not see it happen. If I want to watch a movie, I'll go to the cinema or rent a movie or something.
Let's be honest, it's a bit like an art piece, isn't it? It's the appreciation is just down to the person that's watching it or playing it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's move on then to segment 4. Segment 4, we're going to be looking at some of the memories that myself and Kraken have on specific points and giving our own opinions. Obviously, some of these will be joint because obviously we've been friends for like, I don't know, a long time. Is it getting, it's like 30 years now or something? Long time. Not quite 30 years, but near.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. So we'll be looking at some of the things that we did together, and some of it will be separate. But let's look at the first anecdote, which is MMO beginnings. So the diving into MMO worlds, like in our youth, I say, like in our 20s, we did this a lot. And we played a lot of them together. You know, the likes of EVE Online, World of Warcraft. All
RF
of these,
Online.
RF Online, yeah. I mean, a lot of the people that, if anyone's watching this that's young, probably have to go and Google those. So feel free to do that. But we will be we're talking like, I mean, EVE Online. I have good memories of that. We used to play that back when we lived in northwest London, under the same roof, and we were playing that like a lot. You know, sitting there mining. Yeah. We had like this mining corp. And we were part of it. I remember that it was such a serious thing. It was like one of those things where I was like, I think at the time I was unemployed, or no, we were employed. We were employed, and we were doing game testing for a popular video game company. And in the evenings we'd come home and we'd play these types of games. And EVE Online, it was like a second job. I was like, what was it? A diplomatic officer. And my entire time was set in the chat rooms, like literally trying to create diplomatic agreements with like other cores or alliances in the corresponding areas around the low. They
were corporations, really, weren't they? And some of them actually ran themselves like some. And you got
big time
spreadsheets and stuff, and what's the best ore to mine, and if you mine this one with this particular laser, you get this bonus. And it's like,
do you remember that story about those guys that like went into the game and they infiltrated like one of the top alliances in the game, and they worked their way up to the top and got into the treasury? Like, I know it's funny saying that, like but there was like a treasury, and they got in charge of the treasury, and they stole all of the money. It was like billions of ISK. I think ISK is the name of the currency in EVE, right? And they stole it all. It was like, I don't know, 50 billion ISK or however much it was, and they sold it, and it was worth like, I don't know, like 10 grand or something. So they literally spent the entire of their time. I think it took them like 6 months to a year or something. I mean, I would probably just go and get a job. It would probably be paid better. But these guys literally went in there and stole all that money just so they could sell it on eBay to people. I just think that's funny. So it's literally theft within a game, but it's legal because it's a video game.
Yeah.
They don't take it seriously.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
it was crazy. Eve had some of the most ridiculous politics.
Oh, massively.
Honestly.
People took it so seriously.
System.
People got so mad on me at that game. Like, people were like threatening to, like, I know your IP address. That was the one back in the day. I know no one does that now, but back in the day they used to threaten you, be like, I have your IP address. It's like, okay, cool. Like, people get really mad in that game, and especially if you play it when you got your. I mean, I quit that game because it was blood pressure busting.
It was all consuming as well, like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but we took, like, I remember I took my Tech 3, was it a Tengu? I think it was called a Tengu, like a Caldari ship, and I went out in a wormhole and got absolutely annihilated, and then I was like 400 jumps away because the wormhole closed on me, so I had to like go back in my capsule or get like a little shuttle and fly like the shame flight back to my thing with my blown up Tengu. And it was just like millions, or even I don't know how many millions or billions of it.
Probably hundreds of millions.
Months of work just gone like that in a flash. So yeah, like that was not a fun time. But not being happy about that. And
losing ships was really painful.
Yes, it was. And that was one example. And then we had, like, obviously the other things like World of Warcraft. I had a lot of time invested in that. I have a friend who I speak to still regularly from World of Warcraft that I made a guild with, and I still speak to him like as often as I can. He's got a family, but we literally, our friendship was made from just years playing that game together, like doing raiding and stuff. So you can build lifelong friends from MMOs. But it is like a massive investment of your time. Would I go? I literally quit. I think, what was it, 2-3 years ago? No, it was more than that. 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. Final Fantasy 14, and I've actually resigned from MMOs for the rest of my life. Like, I'm never going back to them. It's just too much time, investment, and as much as I enjoy it.
They are probably the most time-consuming type of game to play in this day and age.
Definitely, and I think it's also a dying game sort of genre. Like, I think it was very, very big back in our youth, like in our sort of early 20s. And nowadays, I don't think like MMOs are like very slowly dying off.
Let's be fair as well. A lot of the current MMOs are suffering the infection of the mobile pay models as well, with their sort of in-game shops.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. I know they exist on MMOs. They have like MMOs on phone now. I think, to me, that's the most insane. Who, like, playing an MMO on a PC was like a sit down on your chair and like sit there for 16 hours potentially on like a very insane level. People doing that on their mobile phones, that is honestly insane to me. Like, that people would sit there hardcoring it like for 16 hours on a mobile phone device. Like,
yeah. I agree. If you think that's bad, Ark had a mobile version, and it was mental. Like, you actually had like timed online rewards and stuff. It was really odd.
Yeah, that sounds.
But it was made by the same studio. It was bonkers. You could still tame and build and everything. It was literally a full-on sandbox. It was kind of good for what it was. Jesus Christ, almost. It set fire to your phone battery though. Jesus.
It also sounds like cancer. Like, I don't want to do anything like that. It sounds like a massive time sink and way too much time spent.
Yeah.
Anything that involves like real-time action on a mobile, no. Like, no, thank you. Like, when I say like, I'm talking like you can't go away from it. There's like, so I don't mind like mobile games where you do some stuff and then you leave it to do whatever and go away and come back later. That's fine. But like actively sitting on your phone and not getting off it with like stuff, that to me is complete waste of time. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. But anyway, let's move on then to the anecdote 2, which is. I wanted to talk on this is gaming in the 90s, which is my sort of era of growing up. It was a golden era, especially in the earlier 90s, where you had the likes of the Sega Mega Drive, Sega Genesis in America, that is, and the SNES, and then you had the PlayStation. I mean, it really had like all of the major growth development spurt of gaming, I think, was in the 90s. Yeah. In the 80s, it was in its early conception. The 90s was like the huge growth. 2000s to 2010s was like the next big growth period where we saw like real big graphical improvement. But like anyone that sort of, whatever you think of Sony as a platform for people like that, in 1994 the PlayStation's release was the thing that literally brought like 3D graphics to the mainstream. Like, even people that didn't play on a laptop or anything, they could now play on their TV. And it was really solid looking stuff. Yeah, that RF.
Look back at it now. Ooh.
That RF online link, like tuning in your TV. Woohoo! Yeah. Good days.
Yeah.
Very.
We're not talking the MMO. Obviously, it's a cable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they were iconic consoles, and people still play them today.
Yeah.
Like, even if they have it in like a mobile format or whatever, like the nostalgia of those games are still appealing to everyone. And I miss the arcades as well. Like, that's something as well that misses from today's culture. I mean, it's a little bit of a detour from this, but it's not, because it's a relevant connection. Like, in the 90s, like, arcades were massive, because people couldn't afford to have the tippy top gaming like quality in your living room at that time. You had like a sort of like hand-me-down version, because you had like a console that was not, it was 16-bit power or whatever, but you go to your local arcade and it was like, in that moment you were able to play these super advanced quality graphic games, with your money that your pocket money that you'd saved up or whatever. And
it was a fun day out, wasn't it?
Jeez. Yeah. And you'd sit there and you'd play whatever it is, Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 2 or WWF wrestling, Virtua Fighter. Yeah, I mean, that looks terrible. Like, now, back in or even the early Mortal Kombats were so great. The motion. I remember thinking, like, seeing that in the arcade and being like, "Whoa, it's a real man or it's a real woman!" Like, And it was such a big, like, people may scoff at that if they looked at a Mortal Kombat game now and they'd be like, that looks so basic. But
for the time and age, that thing was insane.
It was insane.
Even though it was 2D, it was amazing.
Like, seeing like a real person like doing like moves and stuff like in a video game was honestly like mind melting at the time. It was something that no one had experienced.
To put it in perspective, that was next gen.
That was next gen for sure.
yeah,
absolutely. You know, but let's be honest about the iconic element of the 90s, like Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog. These supersede or transcend anything from today. What can you remember? I mean, obviously you've got like when I say you've got memorable characters from video games from 2000 onwards. There's loads of memorable characters. There is. I know it's funny,
but the whole reason I worked on one of my dad's building sites to earn the money to buy a PlayStation 1 was Tekken. That was my entire reason for buying the PlayStation 1.
It's still got a massive following. I mean, some of you know, people still play Tekken today. It's still a massive game, and there's still a huge community, and you know, there's you know, active you know, actual attempts to sort of play them in the general public as well, competition wise. And it just shows like how long that game has continued. I mean, a lot of those, Street Fighter as well, you know, Street Fighter is massive. These you know, these games have stood the test of time. Mortal Kombat as well. All of these are all like games from the 90s that have managed to continue like 20-30 years later. So
stood the test of time, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, fighting games are like one of those ones that just don't die, you know, because the communities are so strong in them. I think competitive spirit like drives these games, and people get used to playing their characters. You know, someone who plays Guile in Street Fighter 2, they want to play Guile and keep playing Guile because it's what they enjoy playing, and it's also what they know the moves, you know, and what they do is they keep adding little by little onto it. But it just shows like the 90s again was coming up with all of these games that exist today. Like that just shows you how strong the 90s were. If you actually look at it, the fact that you mentioned that is a testament to how good the 90s were. It's filled with memorable
some
games.
of the most solid franchises in history.
Exactly, right? I mean, a lot of them were. I mean, Metal Gear Solid, that was 90s, I think, close. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's like 97 or 98 or something. He's another massive, you know, game. Although Metal Gear Solid hasn't been many games recently. But these are, I mean, we could probably go through a whole bunch of them. You could sit here for hours, like recalling like a lot of modern like big games from today that are franchises that probably were born in the 90s, most likely, because that was just such an amazing era. And that's really the point of this anecdote, was to point out like how amazing it was. And anyone out there that's listening to this podcast, even now or in the future, I recommend you go back and check out some of the games from the 90s. And I just do like a ChatGPT request or something, or Google it, and just you know, have a look through the amazing games that you can play them on emulator and stuff like that, or whatever it is. Check out some of those games, because even though they're not graphically amazing, the storylines and the characters were second to none. And I don't think you know, it's hard to really sort of capture that. And I'm not just, that is an element of nostalgia, but I still think I'm not wrong when I say that the storytelling was second to none during that particular decade.
Oh yeah.
All right, well,
actually, remember, sorry, I was just thinking about the first Tekken. Was it the second one? Before the titles, if you left it loading, it loaded in some kind of space shooter, which was another sort of Easter egg thing.
What was that? Which one?
There was, in the beginning of one of the Tekkens, I can't remember if it was Tekken 1 or 2, before the titles, if you left it to load or something, you had this like space shooter, like a scrolling, like you had a little spaceship and you had to shoot everything coming down.
All right, I don't remember or recall that, but I wasn't as much into Tekken as you were. I think Tekken 3 was the peak for me, and I think that's probably the last Tekken. I mean, maybe Tekken Tag I played as well, but I'm not like as much an enthusiast as you were. So maybe
my guilty pleasure in Tekken Tag was the bowling.
Yeah, I mean there were so many random things in Tekken that I used to love, like the little side like missions they used to have. There was like a brawling one as well that I remember. I think it was from Tekken 3. When you used to go out and you could like fight people in like this sort of like 2D fighter thing. I don't really remember what it was because this is going back like 30 years, but it was pretty awesome. Whatever it was, I just remember it in the game. Okay. Let's then move on to the last anecdote for this section of the segment of the podcast, which is tech evolution in gaming. We're just going to be literally discussing what our views are on the tech growing. Literally, it sort of plays into the last note, which is technology and how far we've got and how much further can we go. Obviously, if we look from the sort of sprite. I'm not sure when Pong came out. Was it the 70s or 80s? It was like a long time ago.
I think it might have been 70s actually, because it was on like the old black and white TVs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm talking in the UK. I know everywhere else probably had a colour TV long before us, but
Yeah, I don't think it was that long till colour TV. I think.
yeah.
But I think.
No, they were available, but they were quite expensive, so a lot of people still stuck with the old black and white ones.
Yeah, probably.
I know we had a couple in the bedrooms in my mum's B&B.
But as I said, like obviously the games were coming from that period, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they were still fairly basic up until we hit 2000.
Oh yeah.
Before we saw like a much significant.
Not 2000.
Wow.
Because in 1990, sorry, I did do a bit of research. In 1990, was the introduction of 16-bit consoles. So the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo. So if you imagine the way they kind of looked back then, and it was only 4 years later that Sony came out with the PlayStation.
Was
so
it
we went
94?
from these really blocky. Yeah, we went
sure?
from these really blocky.
I'm sure it's 96 for PlayStation. 94, really?
Quite a bit. It may have been in England, but the main release was 94.
But I mean, fair enough. That is a big jump in 4 years. But when I was talking about graphical, sorry, maybe I was not being clear. I was trying to say that graphics as a whole didn't start to look more realistic until we hit like the PS3 era of like gaming, where things started to look more like actually real things. You know, PS2 was like the last era where things looked blocky, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas PS3 was like, it was still like a little bit blocky, but it looked much more realistic. And then we really, from PS4 onwards, in my opinion, we've reached like a pinnacle of things looking realistic. And now it's just like, how much grass can we add that looks like perfect grass? Or how much, how can we
spraying the wood so
how can we make the physics on hair like absolutely perfect to the point that nobody can determine it's not real? Which, how long can we do that for? Like, we obviously, games nowadays come out and they all look very, very realistic, and it's just how much further can we push the tech before it gets, to the point where nobody cares anymore about the difference?
It'll reach the point where it plateaus at photorealism. That's literally it. I mean, you can't go further than photorealism, can you?
I mean, some could argue we're already there. Have you seen the latest, like the most new Gran Turismo game? I mean, people have.
But Gran Turismo and cars have always been good. But I think when you're talking about people and facial textures, some of the graphics tech at the moment in like using subsurface scattering on skin to make it look like hyper real. When that comes to the point where literally anyone can use it, because graphics cards will have also had to have reached a certain level as well to be able to handle this stuff smoothly. I think beyond that, you're talking about just advancing VR to the level of full 3D photorealism.
I mean, that's
that would be the pinnacle.
Yeah, but the problem with that is VR is, in my opinion, a gimmick that is, people enjoy it, but I don't think it's like anywhere near the same level of mainstream gaming using a television or a monitor or whatever.
Unless you can reduce it to literally wearing a pair of glasses, then I think people find a lot of that.
No, but I
stuff.
actually think that that's not the case. Like, I still think that the problem is to do with people feel sick and stuff. There's people that can't use VR.
Oh yeah.
Like from an actual, there's no point. It doesn't matter how awesome it is if you can put it in a pair of glasses. No one's gonna play it if they feel sick after playing it for 10 minutes. And only like the hardy people that are willing to push through that and teach their mind that you can do it. But not everyone wants to feel sick for like 3-4 weeks of playing before your brain adjusts to it. So I do think there's a limited market for that. Will it continue? Yes, but I don't think it's going to take over the traditional, monitor kind of stuff.
But then maybe the pinnacle would be like holographics. I mean, there are already some pretty damn good ones, but obviously not for home use because, expenses, I'd imagine, would be ridiculous.
Holographic gaming would be insane if you can, if you could make it like turn your entire like room into like a video game or something like.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean that's some nut stuff. I mean that's on the same line of just like having like a VR, but instead of VR, you don't need to put glasses on. You just have it in your room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like Star Trek levels of technology to get to the perfect level, but it is possible. Probably relatively soon, I'd imagine, but they are doing some work at the moment. Scientists messing around with light, and I saw an article recently where they managed to make hard light or something. I have no idea. I need to read into it a bit more, but it's a step in a direction that I think could be really fascinating for gaming.
It would be. I mean, if technology goes in a different way, maybe that's the point, right? Is that we've reached, or I think we're reaching a plateau now with graphics. I do think we're getting very close to the point where, like you said, photorealistic. There's already photorealistic games. You're talking about like people, fair enough. Like the human body.
Yeah, I mean like super smooth,
Yeah, but already like in terms of like Gran Turismo, where you're looking at landscape or cars or like symmetry and stuff. That's already done because people have put that stuff out.
In living tissue though, that needs to look.
Yeah, I think that
like they look good at the moment, but there's still that uncanny valley. Like it's not quite right. That's why AI doesn't create perfect pictures.
But I don't think
see something's off.
I don't think we're far. I think we're getting to the point where it's extremely close. Maybe another couple of generation or two away.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think we're not that far off at all. If you look at some of the stuff that people are putting out at the moment, it's just a case of the technology, like the graphics for consumer use, are at a level that they can handle that without being crazy expensive. Then that will be, where we're at for like the best of games. I think that'll be the next bit.
Well, I mean, time will tell on that, and I look forward to seeing like the advancements of technology to be able to bring us the next level of entertainment. I'm all for that. So that's definitely something to look forward to. All right, well let's move on then to the final segment of today, and probably the most controversial topic, which is the legacy of console wars. And when I say console wars, that includes PC and any other console that exists really, but obviously the main ones being PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Switch, and PC, and the varying communities and why this exists in today's gaming. Well, it's always been there, but why it persists to exist is constant concern to me, and it really just is now counterintuitive to what people want in gaming, which is everyone to be able to play games across all platforms.
Yeah, but it's human nature to be territorial, isn't it?
It's stupid.
We are primate. Really.
Yeah, I know, but stupid.
It is ridiculous, but it is a primal thing. People are just territorial. It is bloody stupid when it comes to games, because I mean, I think up to this point it's been great having a lot of competition between the companies. It's sort of pushed development and research, but I think there's a point now where they really need to start letting people play together. This cross-play being so rare is actually a right pain in the backside.
Yeah.
It's only stifling it.
Well, I mean, as much as I would love this, I mean, I don't think it will go away. Like, it doesn't matter what we say on this stream, is not going to ever change it. But it is like, I understand what you're saying. Like, it's human nature, but humans should be able to like realize the absurdity of this. Like we're discussing it here, talking about the absurdity of it. People should, like, I think it's an age factor. I think it's like when you're younger, you're a stupid idiot on these sort of things, and you buy into this crap that like one console is like, I'm like defending like PlayStation because it's what I play, and everyone else is scabby or rubbish. It's a silly mentality that really doesn't do anything for anyone. All it does is divide communities and causes problems with the agreements of making games cross-platform. I'm so thankful, for instance, Monster Hunter Wilds, which is coming out in 2 weeks, as multi-platform PC, Xbox and PlayStation, and I can play with friends or people that are not on my platform. And I think we should do that, we should do that with everything. We should stop this like constant warring. And you could say, well, you could talk about that in real life, the war that exists in real life. A lot of it's silly, territorial, and just you said human nature, and it exists in the gaming culture as well. But it's just silly. Yeah. It's just silly by nature. It has no value.
The companies kind of ruin it a bit themselves as well. Like, one of these
they play into it, right?
Yeah, like having exclusives on their console and console only. And I understand from a business standpoint, it's great business. But unfortunately for the players, they're the ones that have to take out their cold, hard-earned cash and fork out for an extra console if they want to play this particular franchise that they've followed for a long time. And just because it jumped ship to another brand, they'd not be able to play it without buying that console. I think it's terrible. They need to stop with that. It's going to be one of those points where customers are going to do the talking with their wallet and just not buy into it anymore.
I really hope that's the case, because I want to end this whole... the thing is, I don't think it will end, but the developers need to understand that it's just make games accessible to everyone. That's the vast majority of people want that. Like, they're just not the vocal majority. The minority, most of these people like I see on like PlayStation, the worst place that I see it is on exclusives. Anything to do with exclusives is just painful to watch. Oh, it's exclusive on PlayStation, and you get all the PlayStation and be like, oh, you Xbox users, PC gamers, suck it. We've got an exclusive. It's just like, dude, no. That's not how people should be thinking. We should be thinking that game should exist on all platforms, or at the very least, there'd be a time frame when they're going to get them. Not like feed it to them like, I'll just make it. I know it's like... But also look at Square Enix, right? They did that. They were going, right, let's put it on PlayStation. I'm a PlayStation gamer, so it's good for me. But if I wasn't, I would be pissed. I don't want to have to wait 6 months or a year for the game to come out on my platform. It's not been good for them for business as well, so they've canned that shit now. They're now releasing all their games.
The early days of Final Fantasy were on Nintendo, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So they jumped ship over to Sony, so the people that had a Nintendo had to then go and buy a Sony.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. The whole process is just stupid. And nowadays, it's not lucrative to do exclusive deals because you're literally losing out on the financial gain from these other platforms.
I think the console companies spends a lot of money on those exclusives, to be fair. So I think it is worth it for them. It's not.
It's not. It's been Square Enix like made a loss on this based on the exclusivity program. Yeah, that's why they've broken free from it. The next games, probably the next Final Fantasy. I'm gonna say this now because I'm fairly certain that Final Fantasy 17 will be multi-platform. I'm going to say that right now because I'm like that confident that it will not be, or at the very least it will be a timed exclusive, and it will be a short timed exclusive. It won't be like whatever it was. It'll be 2 months or something, 4 months, or it will be short. But I would like to think that it just releases on all platforms because we need more of that, and less people like hoard. And this is coming from someone that plays on PlayStation. So it would be no skin off my nose to be able to like just be able to play it, and then other people can't. But I want other gamers to play it because I'm not selfish. We should be looking out for each other as gamers and bring the entertainment to everyone rather than just make it a selfish thing where people are just like, haha, I've got the exclusive, you don't. That's fueling that kind of bullshit.
Most obnoxious behaviour.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I think that's all the content we've got for today. It's been an absolute pleasure, doing this with you, Kraken, as always. It's good. Been some good. Usual, it's been some good debate today, and we'll obviously be doing it once again and the next week. Just a shout out to the people that have been watching, or anyone that's watching after the live stream. Thank you for staying with us, and hope it's been an entertaining program today. If you like it, please subscribe to our channel. Please like us or whatever it is. Do a comment, all that good stuff. We much appreciate it. And that's a wrap with Ctrl+Alt+Debate today. Keep the peace, pixels, and power-ups.
Don't rage quit. We'll catch you on the next level.
Or until your controller gets more airtime than your gameplay. See you on the next one, guys.